Hello there, this is Kimberly Wilson, and welcome to the 486th edition of Tranquility du Jour, bringing you tranquility since 2005. Tranquility du Jour is a series of nourishing conversations about living a full and meaningful life with doses of tranquility. And I am delighted to introduce you to this week's guest, Susie Moore. So she wrote this amazing book titled How to Stop Checking Your Likes, Shake Off the Need for Approval, and Live an Incredible Life. So she's going to talk to us about A, how to stop checking your likes, how to shake off the need for the approval, that approval trap, and why living our own lives versus what others want for us is so very important. So over the next few months, I'm going to be bringing you weekly episodes of Tranquility du Jour. I have so many amazing interviews to share with you, and I realize that it's going to take a lot of time to get these out, and some of these are so incredibly timely. So if I stuck with the every other week program, then we would be like moving into 2021 with all the interviews I have for you. So we are instead going to be turning to weekly, and my hope is it'll help you during the quarantine to, have something fun to listen to during your quarantine walks or to be inspired by while you're working virtually from home. So whatever is most useful for you, I just hope that these weekly edition will be meaningful to you during this time. So this Saturday, May 2nd, I'm going to be hosting one more virtual retreat focused on our go-to practices, right? Yoga, mindfulness, creativity, and journaling, but all with a theme around experiencing more tranquility during quarantine. So you're going to learn the 10 types of wellness and how to design a wellness plan, how to create your ideal schedule. We're going to practice some yoga, go through some guided mindfulness practices, engage in creative play, art journaling, and spend time in reflection and community. You can find out more and sign up for it at kimberlywilson.com/virtual retreat. There's also a link in the show notes, which can be found at kimberlywilson.com/486. Also, if you're planning ahead, I have 2 spots left in my Paris retreat happening in June 2021, and a few spots left in my Provence retreat happening at a private villa in the south of France in June 2021. So you can find more information about this also in the show notes or at kimberlywilson.com. So a big thanks to Lizzie Life Coach for leaving this review over on iTunes. My favorite podcast! 5 exclamation points. Highly recommend. I've been listening to Tranquility du Jour since 2006, and it is my favorite podcast. Not only does Kimberly Wilson give so many amazing tools, savvy sources, and good material, she interviews amazing authors and very interesting people in every episode. I highly recommend you listen to it. You too will fall in love. Thank you so much, Lizzie, for taking the time to pen such a kind review over on iTunes. All right, so let's hear from Susie. She's the author of Stop Checking Your Likes, which was named by Entrepreneur as one of the 8 business books entrepreneurs must read to dominate their industry. A former Silicon Valley sales director turned life coach, she's been featured on the Today Show as well as in O Magazine, Business Insider, Forbes, Time, and Marie Claire. She lives in Miami, Florida with her husband Heath and their Yorkshire Terrier Coconut. So you can find out more about her work at susie-moore.com. Welcome, Susie.
Thank you, Kimberly. I'm delighted to be with you today.
I'm so happy to have you on the show. This book, Stop Checking Your Likes, Shake Off the Need for Approval and Live an Incredible Life, is so timely.
Thank you. I feel like it's kind of timely at the moment, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think that seeking approval from others is certainly age old, but it's become easier and just more addictive than ever to want it.
Absolutely. And, I'm just curious, what led you to write this book? What kind of brought you down this path?
I think I always wanted to write this book. And, working as a coach, as an advice columnist, there was just really one common theme that kept coming up from all the questions I was getting and the problems that I was seeing in people's lives. And it was simply this, right? Because it became quite shocking in the end as I made this realization. It's when we want to go for it, do something, make a bold move, put ourselves out there, whatever it may be. As human beings, we are very resilient. There's a lot that we've already overcome to even be alive now. We know that we could take a failure, a mistake, something turning out badly. But the thing that prevents us from going for it isn't the fact that we don't think we'll be able to get back up and survive. It's the judgment that we think that other people have for us that stops us from going for it. We know that we're strong. We can kind of, prevail no matter what happens, but it's judgment from others that really, really scares us. And so I just wanted to really debunk that in the book, really let everybody know that people aren't obsessed with you, aren't paying attention to you, and then give some really practical ways for you to make your inner like button the loudest.
I like that. Inner like button the loudest. And you know what I think is also interesting is you start chapter 1, your parents effed you up. Go for it anyway. Yeah. I'm like, so of course we have to start there with a family of origin. So can you talk a little bit about why that was chapter 1?
Yes, I feel as if, and look, this isn't parent shaming. We're all doing our best. And even like the most ideal parents, like no matter what, there are beliefs that they have that didn't even start with them. Our parents had parents. But in every family, if you know them well enough, you know that there are maybe some beliefs that aren't maybe completely helpful or that completely, serve us. Maybe what our mom thought about something or what our dad thought about something. We just inherit them. It's part of, just the growing up experience. But I feel as if, as an adult, to be aware of beliefs that we have, to be aware of the beliefs that we've inherited, and then to question the ones that aren't helping us, aren't making our lives, satisfying. That puts us in the top 10% of people, right? Most people just think this is how life is, right? It's how it is for me. It's how we do things. It's how, just how life is. And reality is such an interpretation, and our beliefs are so powerful. But I think it's so important to identify them, question them, and see what's working for us and what isn't.
Can you give an example of one of the beliefs that you come across a lot when working with clients and how you've helped them unpack it?
Yes. One common one that comes up, I think, in business is that, making money can be bad, right? Like rich people are bad, or wanting more, wanting to seek, a lot of abundance and success. Like that's negative, or that's not for people like us. That's often the kind of the interpretation that we have from the beliefs that we've inherited, especially if we don't come from money like me. I come from nothing. And so in my family, we only know like one rich person, and she wasn't very nice. And so I've even had this belief that, rich people, you can't trust them. There's something wrong with them, or they're just not good people. And when you think about it, how can you then attract wealth, or how can you attract, abundance into your life if you think that you'll then not be a very cool person, right? You might be a crook, you might be, you'll consider yourself greedy. It's kind of looking at any area of your life, essentially, Kimberly, whether it's like relationships, money, health, whatever it is, and thinking, like writing down, what do I believe about money? What do I believe about marriage? What do I believe about my body? And then creating like statements just of truth, just letting it flow. No one else sees it but you. Just writing down your statements and looking at them. And then questioning, like, is this true about money? Is this true about relationships? Another really popular one is people think that, trusting others isn't safe, especially romantically. We think that maybe if our parents had a bad divorce, or there's, some history of relationships going wrong, that it's not safe to be vulnerable and to trust another person in a romantic relationship. And that can be, of course, very destructive. So questioning it and thinking, really, is this true? And then looking around you and then finding contrarian evidence everywhere, because we always find what we look for.
Beautiful. I'm going to pause there. I love that, by the way. There's a little clicking sound, and I don't know if you're someone who talks with your hands, but sometimes that happens where it's like...
Oh, I do. Let me take that earring off too, in case it's...
maybe that's it. Yeah, because if you move your head and then it,
Yeah, I gesticulate over here, girl. Let me tell you. But I'm having fun.
Sometimes I tell people, I'm like, okay, you're going to have to sit on your hands, right? Because it's like, I'm a hand talker too. And it's so funny. It's like the sounds, that sometimes that can make. So.
Okay, no, got it. Hopefully this is better.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not hearing it now. So yeah, it probably was your earrings. Or were they dangly?
Yeah, they're hoops. So, okay, I won't wear them again with the headphones.
Who knew, right?
I know.
So, as you say all this, it makes me think too from a cognitive behavioral therapy perspective, right? Of, the importance of examining our thoughts or, beliefs, right? Because if we've grown up hearing this over and over again, then, they become ingrained. And yet, what would it be like if we questioned them? And so I love that. I think it's just such an important reminder.
Yes, I feel like it takes some courage to do this, right? Because often it's like, well, anything new or different feels sometimes disloyal, and it feels really uncomfortable. Like, what if that weren't true? This thought that I've had on loop for so many years. And one way that I see it manifest, Kimberly, is when, say somebody's dissatisfied with something. We look at the cause and effect model, which is used in traditional psychology, meaning, just to stick with a relationship example, my parents were divorced and it was ugly, which means I can't trust men or women, right? If that cause and effect model were true, that means that every single person out there whose parents had an ugly divorce couldn't find love happily, couldn't be in a happy marriage. So I think it's always just about kind of debunking the things that we think are true and mean something, and realize they really don't have to. And you can kind of flip the cause and belief, which I really like to do. It's kind of fun. Again, takes courage. And instead, I would say to somebody who wanted to work on this area of their life, maybe finding love and being with someone intimately requires some vulnerability, some courage, some trust on your part, and that's scary. And so then it's easier to blame your parents. So we kind of take away the cause, right, the perceived cause, then we're kind of left with ourselves, which is terrifying and completely freeing at the same time.
Right, right. It's sometimes we look at the situations and we're like, okay, well, what's the common denominator in all of these? It's like, oh no, it's me. Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, like it is this kind of scary. Oh, what? Like, oh, me? But then you realize how much power you have and like, such complete control you have over your life experience.
Right, which, as you say, yeah, is liberating, is freeing, because you're the one who can make changes about it.
Exactly. And that's a very responsible place to be living your life, right? Because it's so easy to abdicate our power, to blame shift, and look, bad things happen to all of us. This happens, even no matter how enlightened you are, taking responsibility for your life fully, bad things will still happen. Like, life isn't meant to be just this easy ride, the whole time. But it just means that when bad things do happen, you're in a far better position to take power and realize your options.
Well, and another thing that I'm curious about with regard to this, and this kind of ties in, is the approval trap, right? That we can get into. And you speak about this in your book. And so, if we have the belief like we always have to be perfect, or, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough. How do you encourage your clients or readers of this book to move past the approval trap? And can you kind of define for our listeners what that is?
Yes, I think, put simply, an approval trap is when you're doing something that isn't your idea. I mean, when you look around at your life, right, all things, your closet even, I met with a stylist in New York recently, and she said, it's so funny, even a lot of the clothes that women wear, it's dictated by their mothers. They don't break their mothers' rules. When it comes to dressing, I mean, I'm a 36-year-old woman. I'm too scared to wear jeans with holes around my mum. It's just not worth it, Like, it's so funny, the approval traps going from very minor, trivial things like that to dictating who you can marry, what type of career you're allowed to have, how much money you're expected to make or not. When you look around at your life and you just think, okay, my finances, my relationships, my friends, how I spend my time, what I allow myself to do or not do, how much of this is actually my idea? How much of this came from me? And when you ask yourself this question deeply, and you realize you're not doing something to appease someone, doing something to keep the peace somewhere, doing something because it's just easier to go with the flow. But I think we can realize and uncover that a lot of things kind of might not have been our decision, might not be exactly where we'd like them to be. Maybe we would choose something else. And then it just has to come down to your understanding and awareness that you're allowed to be, do, and have, like, to live your life the way that you want it to be lived. And that the only person who can seize that is you. And the foundation for that has to be a complete acknowledgement of your own complete and utter worthiness. So you don't have to prove anything. You don't have to earn, respect to take up space. You don't have to like hustle to get there. It's just your birthright. You're allowed to be, do, and have the things that you want.
Yeah, I think that's so important for all of us to remember, right? To look at our decisions and be like, are these really our decisions, my decisions, or are they what I think other people want for me or expect of me or have told me that I should do?
Yes, and I spoke to somebody recently and she said that she's been living in a part of the US that she really doesn't like for 15 years because her mother-in-law insists it's where they should be. And I mean, that's a long time, right? That's a big sacrifice, and she's very unhappy about it. And I mean, the question is, can we blame a mother-in-law for an adult woman's decision? Right? It's kind of easy to think, well, that she says so, and then, I'm just then a victim of her decision. If someone's, old enough to decide where she lives, yes, she might have to have an honest conversation with her husband. There's work that has to be done when we want to make changes, but when you think about it, like it's everywhere. I hear it all the time. It doesn't always show up. People don't say, I'm in an approval trap. I need my mother-in-law's approval or my husband's or whatever it is. But it shows up in the form of, I don't like this, but I'm stuck. This isn't what I want, but I can't change anything. Or, well, that's just how it is for me. It's just how it is in my family. And really very little is fixed, right? There is so much that we have the power to change. So I would just like really think about it. Like, do you like where you live? Do you like the relationship you're in? Do you like, small things, what you put on your body every day? Whatever it is, like just to be aware that it's up to you. Like we're in a free world and we're very blessed to be in this position and to know that like free will is there and it's up for us. It's just up to us to claim it.
I think that is so important. As you're saying this, it makes me think there was this interesting study by a hospice nurse out of Australia.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
I sure do.
And what was the number one regret of the dying?
That we don't live a life that's true to us, that we live a life that's expected of us, by other people.
Yes.
What a terrible regret, right, Kimberly? You want to get to the end of it all and be like, wow, none of that was my idea. I would have done something else. I would have gone and lived in Paris. I would have gone and lived in, Buenos Aires, like whatever. If that's what you want and you never did it, I think that like helping people realize this now, like immediately, is probably the highest work that I can do. And that's really a big reason for creating the book.
Well, and this just ties into my next question is it possible to live a life where we don't care about other people's opinions? And I know that that's not what you're saying, throw that to the wind, but it's also like to recognize that you're the kind of captain of your own ship.
Yes. I actually think it's not 100% possible, to be frank. Like, I think that there's always going to be a little part of us that's like, I hope other people like this. I hope that they're pleased because, human beings, we do care. We care about each other. And it is nice when we're accepted and approved of. And it's actually okay if there's a part of that within your vibration, right, within your experience. But it can't be in the thing that's your decision-making filter, what this person or that person thinks or will say, or the judgment that they'll have. It's okay that it exists. It's okay that we want to appease people and we want them to be happy with us, but it's okay to disappoint them. The worst person you can possibly disappoint, especially at the end of it all, like we just said, is yourself. Your only obligation is to yourself. So I think there's always going to be a degree of caring, but it doesn't get to be in charge. Like that, I think that is the only distinction. It can be that, it can coexist with you, but it does not get to make the calls in your life.
Well, and so how long would you say, with clients you work with, that it takes to let go of being liked, really, and to love ourselves unconditionally, really to have confidence in our decisions? I don't freaking want to live here for another 15 years or 1 year or 15 months, right? It's like, I want to move to X. It's like, how do you help these clients kind of move past that and really listen to their own inner guidance?
It's such a good question. To come with the acknowledgement of our worthiness, because at the root of all problems is a lack of worthiness. If you take any problem and just keep breaking it down, when you come to the core of the issue, it's like, I don't feel like I'm enough. I don't feel like I have enough. I feel like I need to prove myself, right? There's something that I need to earn in order to be here. So I think that when we can just acknowledge our worthiness, right? So think about it. The way that I explain it is this, think about the miracle that is your life, right? How your parents met, how their parents met. The fact that you're alive now, despite so many things that could have gone wrong, right? You're here. There's only one, like your face, your fingerprint, your ideas, like your unique, perfect self, right? That is miraculous. You can't like argue with nature's intelligence, and humans are nature's highest form of intelligence. So when we're kind of questioning all the time, like, are we enough? Are we good enough? Yes. And our worthiness is completely fixed and undeletable. There's I guess, a bit of a joke I share in the book. I say, Kimberly, you went hiking or you went skiing with some friends and you got lost, separated from the group. And it's been hours and it was starting to get dark. Would your friends say, well, let's see, is Kimberly worth rescuing? Let's just check it out. Is she verified on Instagram? How many followers does she have? How much money does she have? Is she skinny enough? I mean, would that happen? Would they go, gosh, I don't know if this woman's worthy of rescue? I mean, of course you are. All human life is precious. And if this is true in the physical realm, how can it not be true in every realm? If you're worthy of mountain rescue, you're worthy of absolutely living the life that you want to live with that precious temporary experience that you get on this earth.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. How you're like, is she verified on Instagram? I mean, is that, I don't know.
Yeah, let's just leave it to the wolves, shall we?
Well, and yeah.
And if think about it, you deserve to be here. So if you deserve to be here with your unique set of, skills, your unique desires, the unique you, what then does anybody have who has the right, and say what is or is not possible for you? It can only be you. Only we know what's inside of us and what's right for us. We have our own inner guidance system. And so that we just have to trust and know that we're worthy of trusting it, most of all.
And how do you encourage people to get back in touch with that inner voice? Because I feel for so many people, it has been given away. The power has been given away for years, right? And so how do you even start the baby step of taking that back and listening to what is it I want?
First of all, just asking yourself the question. Sometimes I've done this with groups, and Kimberly, I mean, I've worked with people who've never asked themselves this question. Never, ever, ever. Not like, what do I want? It's like, well, oh, wait, who's got time for that? Right? I've just got to get through the week, feed my kids, get my job done, not get a divorce, whatever it is, even just pausing to think, what is it that I want? You have already jumped leaps and bounds ahead of the person you were yesterday, if that's a question that you are allowing yourself space to ask. And the truth is, when it comes to our intuition, right, and our intuition at its strongest becomes this real feeling of knowing, our intuition responds and is on demand when we give it some airtime, right? When we give it the opportunity to pop up. But often we're just too busy listening to others, observing others, getting the approval in the form of likes or whatever, however that shows up in your life, other people being pleased with you, and then just keeping responding to that versus, being self-directed and thinking, what is it I want? What matters to me? If nothing changes in my life, right? If I just keep going as I am for the next year, 5 years, 10 years, is that good enough? Is that going to be good enough for me? Because you know what it's like. The days go and the years pass and you're like, gosh, how did I end up here? Happens so much, right? We don't realize, but day to day, all these kind of invisible things happen, these invisible pulls on us. And then just the years fly and we're like, this isn't what I wanted. This wasn't what I expected. So it's so important to be quiet, to tune in, and frankly, tune out a lot of the noise. It can be so helpful to take a break. If you go for a walk or sit down, not have music, not have a podcast, not have anything, just but your own thoughts, because your intuition is there and it's begging to get in touch with you if you've been ignoring it.
Yeah. And that getting quiet is so challenging for people. And I think that's one of the big things coming out with the quarantine right now, where it's like, our distractions. I mean, granted, we have tons of distractions at home, but they're quite limited compared to what they used to be. And so that I think is really uncomfortable for people.
And, those of us who are really struggling at the moment, and I understand, I mean, I'm an extrovert. I love people and I love doing all the things. But, anyone who's really, really struggling at the moment, I think, question like, why is that? Why is it so hard to be alone in a room? Like, I think it's worth that. That's worthy of some questioning too. Like, what is it that's so difficult about this? Because, well, when you're with yourself, right, providing you like yourself, there's so much that you could just be exploring right now. Even just having some peace, a break, no expectations. There is no accountability right now when you think about it, right? There is nowhere that we have to be. We show up on Zoom, but like, what else apart from that? I think it's really this could be a great opportunity for a lot of people to go within, right? Because we can't go outside, we've got to go within, and and to think, what is it like? What is it that maybe my higher self wants to tell me? Like, what information is there? And yes, there are all the devices, all the screens, all the things that we can be doing. But what if we just set everything aside for a little while? Sit down, close your eyes, listen. It gets easier the more that you do it. And then I find, because I'm so connected to my intuition now, I don't even need to really meditate. I just feel like it's with me on call because I keep going back. And like anything else, it strengthens with use. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I would agree. And I would also agree that I think it's quite uncomfortable for people. And so, as you say, even right now, there is the opportunity for it. And I think for some people, it's just like, oh my gosh, I've never had this opportunity, right? I've always been pulled in multiple directions, or one could say allowed myself to be pulled in multiple directions, speaking for myself, and so it's like, okay, well, now, what would it look like to actually hit the pause button and do some pretty deep questioning so we don't end up as that hospice nurse described?
Exactly. And I think it's so fun to like write it out and to think there's a chapter in my book which is called Ask What's Missing, which is the question that I use to replace what's wrong. So if someone's unhappy, or if a project fails, or like whatever it is, there's an upset or a setback or something that just doesn't feel right, I think it's such a good question to ask yourself what's missing. Because nothing is necessarily wrong. There's probably just an additional piece we need to add into a mix somewhere. And this question, what's missing, I think really also opens up our creativity and allows us to see more options and more opportunities. So that can also be a good place to start thinking, okay, if I'm not completely satisfied in every life area, and I would say this is most people, like, what is missing? And then to free write, or to free think if you don't like to write, and just not put any limits on it or expectations, just to be curious about it.
I love that. I love that question, what's missing? And one question that I like to use a lot kind of around this is what most needs attention right now? Which, I think that ties in a little bit with what's missing, but it's, this opportunity to really check in and just ask yourself, like, what is it that I most need in this moment or at this time in my life? And
yes.
It's powerful.
Yeah, and start with one thing, right? You don't want to be like, oh, what's missing this? And then have 300 things and then feel overwhelmed. Right. Or not everything can be pressing in relation to your awesome question. Not everything can be the most important thing right now. So it's like, well, what's the thing? What's the thing that, and again, only your intuition can tell you, because there could be a few things, but what's the one thing right now that is missing or that needs the most attention that will make everything else easier or unnecessary? Or more manageable for me. And it's amazing. I mean, I've done this exercise with so many people, and it varies so much. Some people need to get away. Some people need a break. Some people need time with friends. Often that gets kind of put to the back burner when you're a busy person, especially if you have kids. You don't often see your friends that much. I mean, I've just seen so many different things that are missing, which I could never have guessed if I looked at different people's lives. And a lot of it is, a break from the go, go, go. And that's the gift that we've been given now.
Agreed. Yeah. I think it's, it's incredibly challenging for people, of course. And yet it also is this interesting gift of really like localizing, right? Going super micro, meaning home,
Yes, exactly. That's right. And when you think about it, there's nothing that we can control out there, but there's also nothing really new with that. But in our apartments, in our minds, we have complete power and control over what happens, over this small corner of the world that we touch.
Well, and kind of circling back to the title of the book, like I'm curious, so many of us check our social media accounts like multiple times a day. And do you have any tips that actually work for disconnecting from social media, while also using it for business and personal connection?
Yes, I mean, that's a really great question. I I would recommend that everyone just checks their Instagram use. So, or whatever platform, Instagram, make it really like readily available, but just see how much time you're spending on it per day. It's very easy to find out in the insights piece to see, you're spending 30 minutes, an hour and 27 minutes, whatever it may be. And then think, is this a good use? Like, is this, I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it's a big business growth, platform for you. Maybe it brings you a lot of kind of joy or comfort, connection, entertainment right now. That's all good. But in a lot of cases, I just feel like it's a muscle memory default, a lazy thing that we all do. And when you like, that's pretty considerable. Like, when you think about it, there are so many other alternatives out there using our phone that can make us smart, that can make us calm versus, kind of stressed, or even just feeling, that feeling that you have when you kind of just give away your power by getting sucked into the scroll hole, whatever platform that is in your life. I would first check, how much am I really using this realistically? Be honest with yourself. And then think about maybe one or two things that could be of better use to you, especially in the longer term. And then, frankly, you can just do some app delete for a day, 2 days, see what happens, because then your muscle memory has to be questioned at that point, and you're simply forced to do something else. Like, don't worry, it will come back. Like, nothing is going anywhere, and you won't miss anything urgent, because if anything really urgent happens, someone will call you, someone will tell you. So I think it's good to understand that, what you don't see can't bother you. You have complete control. Often you hear a very passive voice when people talk about social media. They're like, I just get sucked in, or it's just there. I mean, the scrolling just happens. Like, like, it's your hands, it's your brain, it's your eyes, it's your attention, and it's entirely up to you to take breaks, to do some temporary deletion, or just, frankly, focus on something else for a while. Find some other apps, some healthy alternatives that will serve you in the longer term.
Have you read Cal Newport's Digital Minimalism?
No, but I've heard about it.
Oh, it's so good.
What's the best tip from that book?
Oh my gosh. Well, one big thing that he recommends is taking like a 30-day kind of detox from it, which I appreciate. I love the idea. I have not been able to do that. But I remember after reading it was probably last August, my Facebook use went down a lot, just kind of that late night scrolling where you're too tired to go to sleep. And, so you're, one is, on their own terms, as you said, it doesn't scroll itself, but, is kind of on it. And I was just like, man, I don't even care. Like, what am I doing? And so that was really helpful reading that book. I wish I could remember kind of like a tangible tip, but I just know that my usage definitely went down. And then
sorry.
Well, yeah. And then I started, a private Facebook group for an online course, right? And I wanted to stay connected to the people there. So then I got back into it. And I was like, man, it's so hard. It's like this tug of war.
It's so funny, isn't it? I mean, like, when you think about it, the minimalism, I mean, heck yes. I think sometimes we tell ourselves a lie, though, too. We think, oh, I have to be aware of what's going on for my business. Like, I had a break. It wasn't even conscious, but I just took one late last year and nothing happened. I didn't post anything. I wasn't active with anything, and absolutely nothing happened. I didn't miss a thing. So I think that we need to be a bit more realistic with ourselves too. And we don't need to know what everyone's eating, wearing,
right.
They're quarantine chic. We don't need to know. And we also only have a certain amount of emotional energy per day too. So if you want to kind of use it like looking at other people and having opinions about that, that's fine. But if that energy went kind of a bit more inside, right, I think there's just a whole lot of potential that we could be reaching.
Absolutely. I think that's just such a good reminder. And, and it's like the screen time, that Apple like lets you know with regard to your phone each week. It's like, oh man, really? Like, that's just crazy.
I know. Add up the hours. It's like a full-time job.
Now, Susie, like, what is the one thing you want readers to take away from your book? Like the main kind of nugget?
I would say probably in summary, relax. I mean, we're taught the opposite, right? In every other way, like hustle, strive, like work till your eyes bleed. Like the underlying message in a lot of cases is prove prove to us that you're allowed to take up space here. Like, prove it. Like, show us that you're worthy of almost like belonging. And there's nothing to prove. There's no one to prove it to. Nobody is superior to you. Their opinions shouldn't be any louder than yours. And so remember to relax. Your life is meant to be fun. You're meant to having a joyful, fun experience. That's really the point, right? Happiness is the goal of all other goals. If you wanted a yacht or a relationship, it's because you think it'll make you happy. So when you relax, right, you take the pressure off any kind of perfectionism, stress, pleasing others. When you relax into it, that's where the joy comes, and it's where a whole lot of clarity comes too.
And before I ask you my last question, is there any final thoughts that you want to share kind of about the book with listeners that we have not touched on?
I would just say it's really time for us to stop judging ourselves so harshly, and then frankly giving any attention to the judgments of others that aren't coming from a loving and intentional place.
Yeah, I think that's a great reminder, right? It's like, why do you care what someone who's living in their, grandmother's basement, like saying, on your platform? It's like,
exactly. It's like you have this precious life. Why don't you spend 17 hours a day getting validation from strangers on the internet? Great idea.
Right. Exactly. I mean, so painful, to be looking for it out there. And so I think it's just a great reminder about the relaxing and really tuning into yourself to see like, okay, how do I get internal validation? How can I validate myself in the decisions I'm making right now?
Yes, exactly.
So my last question, Susie, the name of the podcast is Tranquility du Jour. So I always like to ask guests, how do you personally find tranquility in your everyday?
Oh, what a good question. I think that tranquility for me is just an ongoing decision, right? Even in a stressful position, if you're hammering away on something, or someone's expecting something for you, or if you're on a deadline. I remember Wayne Dyer once said that there is no stress in this world, only stressful thoughts. And whenever I feel stress, right, the opposite of tranquil, I just remind myself that I'm choosing that. And so then peace and tranquility, they have to begin with me. So I just want it to be ever present in my life, like this undercurrent of peace, and know that whenever something is off, it's something that it's my responsibility to change.
Which again is liberating, right? Because
Yes.
you're in the driver's seat.
Yes, and also wine.
And also wine, yes.
And also red wine in particular. So love that too.
Great. Well, thank you, Susie, so much for being here today, and congratulations on your new book.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. This was so much fun.
So over in the show notes at KimberlyWilson.com/486, you're going to find links to Susie's website, her StopCheckingYourLikes.com webpage, her Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Twitter, and YouTube. So there are all sorts of ways to find the lovely Miss Susie. Also, let's connect. If you have a moment to share a review of this podcast on iTunes or a review of any of my books on Amazon or Goodreads, you may just hear it shared on the show. Details are at KimberlyWilson.com/review. Also, a reminder that we have 485 episodes in backlog. So if you want more episodes, you can download the Tranquility du Jour podcast app for iPhone and Androids. And you can find more about this at KimberlyWilson.com/podcast, along with all the past episodes. Don't forget to subscribe in your favorite podcast app, such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Overcast. And sign up for Love Notes, which is my weekly newsletter, a little dose of love to your inbox, and it gives you all sorts of updates and inspiration, including access to an abundance of multimedia resources, Tranquil Treasures. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I wish you a wonderful week ahead. And I'll be back in touch next week with an interview with the lovely Jennifer Loudon. Have a great week. Namaste.